At first glance, it just looks like two rich guys posing for a flex. Velvet robes, expensive gadgets, a globe or two. Basically Renaissance Instagram. But wait a sec. Something's not right. There's way too much going on here. A broken lute string, a half-hidden crucifix, a celestial sphere next to a math book. Feels like a puzzle, and every single object in the painting is a clue. The painting's called The Ambassadors by Hans Holbein the Younger. And don't let the fancy name fool you, this isn't just art. It's a full-blown crime scene of symbols. And we're about to crack it wide open. Because the question isn't just who are these men, it's also why are they surrounded by this bizarre museum of objects? What's that big smear at the front? And what the heck does it all mean? Let's start with the obvious. This thing is gorgeous. Holbein really did something. Every inch is soaked in texture and luxury. Look at the first guy. He's rocking pink satin sleeves under a robe that looks like it came straight off a taxidermied polar bear, stitched together with golden thread like it's no big deal. The second bloke isn't slacking either. He's cloaked in a rich, fur-lined ecclesiastical robe that screams, "I read Latin, don't you know?" The fabric folds alone look like they cost half a kingdom, and surrounding them is just a casual oriental carpet underfoot and a thick green velvet curtain in the background. Because apparently, Holbein wanted to paint every texture in existence in a single frame. But these aren't just flexes, they're clues. Clues that tell us this painting isn't about one moment, it's about everything these men stood for. The richness, the intellect, the world they lived in. And if you pay attention, Holbein slips in two little personal tags, like Easter eggs for art nerds. Look closely at the first figure. In his hand there's a golden dagger, subtle but sharp, with the number 29 engraved on it. That's Jean de Dentiville, and 29, that was his age when the painting was completed. Slide your eyes over to the second figure, Georges de Selve, and there, sitting neatly next to him, is a book marked 25. Same trick, different number, his age. But don't get too comfortable, because the real treasure trove is right in the middle. That shelf is basically the nerve centre of the painting, stacked top to bottom with objects that whisper secrets if you listen closely. This mysterious two-tiered shelf is like the control panel of this whole painting. It's the heartbeat, the clue board. And the first thing it tells us is that these guys were no average courtiers. They were educated, like dangerously educated. Because this shelf isn't random, it's structured around the quadrivium, a medieval curriculum of 4 sacred disciplines believed to form the complete mind of a free man: arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. In short, the backbone of intellectual life in the Renaissance. If you didn't know your way around these, you weren't playing in the big leagues. You were a bit crap. Look at how Holbein arranges it all, carefully split across 2 shelves, not by accident, but by philosophy. The top shelf, that's the celestial domain. Everything up there deals with the heavens. Stars, time, the vast unknowable skies. Down below, that's Earth, more grounded, more chaotic, more us. It's the classic Renaissance obsession, man caught between heaven and dust. So, let's start our investigation at the top, because these guys have stories to tell. First up, a beautiful celestial globe, showing constellations mapped out like the gods had handed over their blueprints. Right beside it is an arsenal of astronomical instruments, sundials, quadrants, devices for measuring time and space. To the casual eye, they look like museum props, but to someone tuned into Holbein's wavelength, these are ticking, smouldering clues. Now, people have spent centuries trying to decode what these gadgets are actually measuring. Dates, hours, latitudes. Each one seems to be pointing at something, but no one fully agrees on what. Some say they all align to a specific day, Others call it beautiful gibberish. Renaissance level trolling. But let's zero in on the one clue that refuses to sit quietly, the cylindrical sundial. This little beauty is more than a fancy timer. It's designed with different faces and angles, allowing someone to calculate both the hour and the date by observing sunlight. And one theory, long whispered in scholarly corners, suggests it's marking April 11th, 1533. That just so happens to be Good Friday. Nice, symbolic, religious, a fine theory. Or is it? Because then along comes British historian Eric Ives, throwing a historical wrench into that timeline. He claims the dial is actually pointing to May 11th, 1533. Why is that date a big deal? Because that's the day Anne Boleyn was officially recognised as Queen at the court of Henry VIII. And that, my friends, is no coincidence. And this wasn't just another day at the Tudor office, it was a full-blown political detonation. Anne Boleyn's recognition as Queen wasn't just a courtly celebration, it was the fuse Henry VIII lit to blow up England's relationship with Rome. One papal divorce denied, and suddenly England is no longer kneeling to the Pope. It's elbowing its way into Protestantism, armed with royal stubbornness and divine justification. You can almost hear the stained glass cracking in real time. So, if Holbein really is marking this exact moment in his painting, this powder keg day of May the 11th, 1533, then we're not just staring at objects on a shelf, we're staring at evidence. Tangible, symbol-drenched evidence of ideological upheaval. The kind of upheaval that doesn't just change lives, it rewrites history. And now, our next clue sits right there among the clutter. A universal dial, curiously disassembled. It's like a puzzle left mid-solve, as if someone was trying to piece together how time itself works, and got distracted by, say, a royal coronation. Next to it, we spot a polyhedral dial with a built-in compass. But here's where things get messy. 3 sides are visible, and 2 tell us it's 10:30, while the third insists it's 9:30. Someone's lying. Or perhaps Holbein wants us to notice this contradiction, because nothing screams Renaissance England quite like timepieces that can't agree. It's as if the instruments themselves are arguing over how chaotic this period really was. And then, right beside these feuding dials, something exotic, a talkative. This was the iPhone of ancient astronomers, an all-in-one device used to track stars and planets long before Google Sky. The Greeks invented it, the Islamic scholars perfected it, and by the Renaissance, owning one meant you were cosmically informed, socially impressive, and cool. It's the kind of object that says, I have friends who talk about Jupiter at dinner. And that brings us to an interesting connection. Holbein had painted these kinds of scientific toys before, most notably in his portrait of the German astronomer Nikolaus Kratzer. So it's not like Holbein was winging it with these instruments. He knew people who lived and breathed this stuff, which makes it all the more suspicious that none of the measurements line up. Hours are off, locations are skewed, and celestial tools are a bit too casual about precision. Could this be Holbein's cheeky way of hinting at the disarray of the time, or was he simply letting symbolism trump accuracy? Either way, something doesn't add up, and in this painting, that's never by accident. Now, let's descend to the lower shelf. The heavenly tools above spoke of stars and philosophy, but down here we're dealing with dirt, land, power, earthly matters. First up, a terrestrial globe. But not just any globe. This one's flipped upside down, and all roads lead to Paris. Or as Holbein spells it, Baris. Yep, Baris. And across the sea, Britannia becomes Britannia. Was Holbein making spelling errors? Unlikely. These quirks could actually reflect how he heard these names in the multilingual melting pot he worked in, Or maybe he's nudging us to notice that even language was in flux. Nothing was stable, not even place names. The detective in me sees this and asks, why Paris? Why the centre stage? Could this be another breadcrumb pointing towards the identities of our ambassadors? Maybe they were representing their countries in this very moment of historical upheaval, one tied to France, the other to England, both caught in the gravitational pull of religious and political transformation. And just when you think you've pieced it all together, Holbein throws in another clue. Because of course he does. Tucked quietly onto that globe is a town called Polisi. Now, this isn't just any French dot on the map. Polisi happens to be the estate of Jean de Danteville. Bingo! That little speck of land turned out to be the key that confirmed his identity. Subtle? Maybe. Accidental? Not a chance. Now, right next to our globe of secrets sits an open arithmetic book and set square, like a crime scene left half solved. But this isn't just any book, it's a real one. The new and reliable book of calculation instructions for merchants by Peter Appian. And it's open to a page about, you guessed it, division. Literally. The page reads, divide. Not coincidence. This was about the division of Europe, of Christendom, of truth itself. And the trial of visual metaphors keeps coming. Just beside the book sits a lute with one broken string, curling like a loose thread in the fabric of unity. And right next to it, a case of flutes, one mysteriously missing. Instruments that usually sing of harmony now scream dissonance. Holbein's message maybe was that things are falling apart. Even the music's off key. Then there's that hymnal, sitting there like a quiet guest at a loud dinner party, yet somehow shouting louder than anyone else. A Lutheran book, written in German. But the 2 pages Holbein chose to show weren't actually side by side in the real thing. He hand-picked them. One a hymn by Luther, Come Holy Spirit, the other a pared-down version of the 10 Commandments. This was also a curated message, a theological mixtape, if you will, and if it was meant as a call for peace, then Georges de Selve, the man on the right, was definitely listening. As a bishop, Georges didn't just dabble in the religious turmoil of the time, he was neck-deep in it. Appointed young, brilliant, and deeply spiritual, he felt the Reformation like a tremor in his bones. Maybe this wasn't just a portrait, it was his prayer, a desperate, elegant plea for reconciliation. Finally, Holbein drops 2 big ones right at your feet. One makes you tilt your head, the other makes you question everything. The crucifix and the skull. Let's start with the skull. Right there, smack in the centre bottom of the painting. An odd, stretched out shape that baffled viewers for centuries. Blurry, warped, out of place. The kind of thing that makes you rub your eyes and say, what the hell is that? Restoration after restoration couldn't quite solve it. In fact, back in the 1800s, a gallery worker looked at it and said, it's a cuttlefish bone! Which wasn't completely off. It was a bone, just not the kind you'd expect on a seafood platter. Eventually, someone figured it out. It wasn't from the sea, it was human. A skull. But Holbein didn't paint it like an ordinary memento mori. He twisted it, warped it with an optical trick called anamorphosis. So when you're standing front and centre, eyes on the ambassadors and all their worldly glory, you miss it completely. But the moment you shift, literally and metaphorically, it snaps into focus. And suddenly everything else collapses into that one brutal truth. Death's been staring at us the whole time, watching from the sidelines while we analyse the globes, decode the books, and wax poetic about harmony and diplomacy. Holbein doesn't just show us at the end, he hides it in plain sight, because that's how death works, isn't it? We pretend it's not there until it's all we can see. And just when you're absorbing that smack in the mouth, Holbein offers a counterweight. The second clue, far quieter but just as deliberate, is the crucifix. It's tucked in the upper left corner, barely peeking out from behind the green curtain. Blink and you'll miss it. But it's there, a tiny depiction of Christ on the cross, hanging above the shoulder of Jean de Danteville. Holbein didn't spotlight it. He didn't need to. Its power is in its humility, a reminder that death isn't the final word, not if you believe in something beyond the material. While the skull screams inevitability, the crucifix whispers possibility. It's a masterstroke of irony, a room full of tools that measure the heavens and weigh the earth, but none of them can measure this. The warped skull, the cosmic mic drop, reminding us that no matter how finely tuned your lute is or how many languages your book is printed in, we all end up the same: bone, dust, shadow. And just when you're spiralling into existential dread, Holbein throws the last curveball, the crucifix, half hidden but undeniably there, like a whisper from beyond the frame. A quiet promise that maybe this isn't the end of the story after all. And it doesn't have to be, because if you like stories like this, then you might as well like this video and subscribe to this storied channel of ours, Art's Wonders. See you in the next one!